hold on. We need to expand on this idea and put your career in danger because you've decided to come onto this podcast. This week's cry for help is education. We have a guest, a new guest, not returning this time. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Ryan.
Yeah, my name is Ryan. I'm a Spanish world language teacher. I've taught since 2020. I'm going into my 4th year, and I'll actually be teaching English this year at a new school. So I'm in a transition phase.
It would have been a pretty stupid idea to go into labor, like going into anything that has to deal with labor activism without bringing on someone that works in the sector of the most attacked unions in America. So I don't know if you want to kind of give us a rundown of like what your experience so far has been working in the greatest education system on the planet.
So I love how you framed it that way, because I really truly believe that data aside, and I know people are going to laugh at that, I really do think America has the most dynamic education system in the world when it comes to public schools. Do we have the best outcomes? No. But we are also working against a society that doesn't invest in like the eradication of poverty, right? Mm-hmm. So me as a teacher, it's very difficult for me to have like really high learning outcomes year after year when I am essentially a high school teacher who is receiving students who are very well formed already as individuals, mm-hmm. but not very well formed academically because of their economic background and situation. Yeah. So that aside, I really do believe we are in a phenomenal education system. It just has its issues. My personal experience as it relates to like labor, and the power dynamic between bosses and teachers and parents is exactly as you mentioned. There is absolutely nothing we can do correctly. Yeah. Even when we're trying. If you did not read to your child when you were a young parent and your child was, pre-K, it's my fault that your kid reads below grade level by the time they leave my classroom, even though, again, I'm a 9th grade teacher and there's been so many years of parenting mm-hmm. that you should have been doing. It's math teacher's fault that you didn't teach your kid how to do taxes. It's science teacher's fault when your kid watches YouTube all day and you don't parent them and they think the world is flat.
Yeah. Shout out to Kyrie.
So, that is the situation. That is the culture and the climate that we're working in as far as education goes. And so in my sector, unions are extraordinarily important for teachers. And we see it across the country in states that don't have labor protection as teachers. I actually was reading today about a teacher in Georgia who had a 1-page contract, just 1 page.
To kind of just put this into perspective, I basically do contract work. I do videography for a living, and even the contracts that I have set up with my own lawyers, minimum 20 to 25 pages, because you have to cover yourself for any possible negative outcomes of the job, and you need to protect yourself, and you also need to protect your client so that they know what they can and can't ask of you. So 1 page is crazy.
Well, the reason why it's 1 page is because the page pretty much says you are our slave, but we'll pay you. In terms of your time, you're our slave. So if we ask you to stay 7 hours after school today, that is the working hours. Because
not paid for, just working.
Because you're salaried
in this contract,
too.
Right. And in this contract, the working hours are not stipulated. It just says you must be here for all working hours. And so when your principal walks up to you and says, we need you to run a concession stand for 5 different sporting events this week, you better do it, because if you're found in breach of your contract, you can lose your job. And in some states, not only will you lose your job at the high school that you're working at, or elementary or junior high, you will lose your license, because it's stipulated in that little 1-pager, 2-pager, 3-pager, whatever it is in the state that you're working in, that if you break contract, you are breaking State Board of Education, contract essentially.
Yeah.
So these are places with no union protections. Here in Chicago, we have arguably the strongest teacher union in the nation. We also have the strongest wages in the nation. Versus cost of living. Yes. So for a starting teacher like myself, I'm able to live very comfortably compared to other teachers in other states. So that's some of the benefits of having the union, obviously, on a surface level, but we also need it because of that political and cultural climate, like
Absolutely.
we have no power against anybody without a union, and that includes the parents. Like when a parent comes in and tells you how to do your job, and you've studied for 6 years, worked for another however many, it's just it's one of those situations where you're like, if I don't have a cohort of people who can legally defend me in certain situations,
It's scary. It is extremely scary.
Yes. Yeah. This is my livelihood.
Yeah, exactly. But it is never
But
going
it's their
to.
kid, so what they say is more
it's never
important.
going to stop like Clarice from coming into your classroom and just start yelling at you after. And it's like, cool, dude. I literally have a master's degree in whatever field, right? In education or whatever. And you're coming in here and telling me that I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I have
after
a master's
putting
degree
myself
in my little son, Chucky, okay?
Yeah, she
you
has
just
a
don't
master's
get it.
degree in being a crunchy parent.
I will say though that I never went in teaching expecting like people to just give me respect and not earn it, right?
Absolutely.
I do spend more time arguably with these people's children than they do. So the expectations are high, and I knew this going into the field. That being said, you can come into my room and say everything you want to me, and I will pretty much be like, take it up with my union. Like,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, that's what I get to say. But I'm lucky that that's the case. I'm inheriting.
That's kind of
the system.
the one thing that I always say when we talk about Illinois as a state. There are a lot of issues with the government of this state being how corrupt it is, but in terms of just labor power in the state of Illinois and specifically in Cook County, it's probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest in America. Like there are very few places where there is this much protection for labor unions.
I would argue, and of course could be wrong on paper, but I would argue it's only second to California. I believe Illinois is really second only to California. I believe 28% of Illinoisans are unionized. Something along those lines. That might be public sector. And then I think private sector, it's 11%. But that's...
Because I know, like...
That is an insane amount of
I mean,
people
you're
that
talking
are
about America.
unionized.
Yeah. This is
And
since
like
1980s.
in what, like the third or fourth most populated city in America?
Yeah. And as
It's
a
like
state,
you
we
go
have
to,
12
like,
million
the-
people.
Yeah, and you go to like you hear the statistics. Like I was at that SAG rally at the Buckingham Fountain not too long ago, and you know representatives from the Teamsters were there with all the inflatables, and you had people from you had politicians representing certain districts of the state. They're dropping F-bombs, which I was a fan of because that's what politics is now.
Labor, baby.
Yeah. But it's one of those things.
When the leader of your union is named Sean O'Brien, a lot of F-bombs are being dropped. Shout outs to Teamsters, by the way.
Yeah.
Good job winning that.
Congrats,
winning the
UPS.
negotiations.
But,
it's wild because I'm sorry to cut you off
No
on
problem.
it, but the mentioning of UPS's win, my mother's a postal worker, so she works for the United States Postal Service, and their union is legally not allowed to strike.
Man, we are definitely going so far away from education, but USPS is one of the things that I get really angry about because everybody always complains about how shitty the mail service is, but it is set up to fail. USPS as a service is set up to fail by design of our government. It is a fully public service, but it constantly gets its funding cut every single year, and it is still expected to turn a profit every single year. That shit doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and there's also this argument that like, we need to fix the United States Postal Service's profitability.
Yes.
A service is called a service because it operates at a loss. The U.S. public education system, for example, operates at a loss. My salary does not have a return on investment to society in an immediate sense that we can calculate, right?
Right.
So the taxes we're collecting to pay for teacher salaries, teacher benefits, teacher assistant salaries and benefits, paraprofessionals, principals, all the staff in a school, and then you multiply that for the 600 schools that are just in the Chicago Public School District, you're talking about $6.2 billion paid out in just salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
$6.2 billion out of a $9.4 billion operating budget or something like that. And so it's at a loss, at least at first. Now, can we make the argument that when people graduate, whatever they know, the skills they have, has a return on investment for society? Absolutely. That's incalculable. Sure.
Right.
But like That is what a service by definition is. The fact that the Postal Service goes to every house in America every single day, while UPS and FedEx and DHL can all refuse to go to houses
Like
they don't want to
small
go
town
to.
areas as well.
Right.
That's because it's a service. It's not supposed to be profitable. It's supposed to serve Americans. And I think that's another really interesting dynamic about unions is you'll often hear from people who are anti-union that public unions should be illegal. The only place that there should be unions they advocate
I'm
is in
with
the
them.
private sphere.
100% with them. Yeah. What are they doing?
Because their argument is, well, you're just going to hold the taxpayer at ransom. You know, you get to take whatever you want.
Yeah.
Actually, it's because it's the opposite. Because I am a part of a service, I am deemed as somehow automatically less valuable.
And
If we're going to give everybody this, we can, you know, depress your wages. We can do all kinds of things because, hey, you know what? This isn't a Fortune 500 company that we're trying to attract talent and we can decide who we want to provide services to. Instead, it's like, oh, you're a public school teacher. You're doing a service to society. Suck it up and take $50K a year.
yeah.
Right. And like buy your classroom the books. Like we can't fund it.
Anybody who's ever seen a classroom at the beginning of a school year before a teacher walks in knows that if teachers did not pay for designing their classroom, students would be literally learning in an empty room.
Oh yeah.
It comes out of our salary.
Yeah.
And so again, at the end of the day, it's like anybody who advocates against, public unions is somebody who inherently misunderstands the issue. If anything, a coder at Google doesn't need a union. That dude's pulling in $150K a year.
150K plus.
Easy. And has skills that in this economy, American capitalism is valuing at such a high rate. He could go from Google to who knows what else tomorrow if he needed to. He will get a job, maybe 10 over.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, myself,
There is a very finite amount of jobs that are available to you because you also have to specialize.
Exactly. Well, and that's the other thing. Relative to other fields, I have to be so incredibly highly educated versus what I actually make. Like the average teacher in Chicago public schools, I shouldn't say the average, it's 60%. So it's over half. 60% have a master's degree.
That's insane.
Yeah. I'm about to finish mine this December. And so you're talking about an incredibly well-educated workforce that when compared to other people with master's degrees in private fields makes nothing in comparison.
Yeah.
And that's in a district where we make really good money compared to other school districts.
Right.
Again, if you compare me to like a teacher in Alabama, the teacher in Alabama thinks I'm like wealthy.
Right.
Yeah, because
that's commentary on how bad the system
it's
really
because
is.
like in those smaller states or like the poorer states as well as just like Appalachia as an entire region, those teachers are making like $26,000 a year.
Yep.
That is what they have agreed upon with the union. But there is,
if they have a union.
Yeah.
Right.
There is one thing that always drives me up a fucking wall with specifically anti-union propaganda when it comes to the teachers union specifically. And it's just the way that the conversation is always framed, where it's like, oh, they never care about the kids. Everything is always about the money. And, you sit there on the sidelines and you're like, you don't get that they're fighting for your kids. Like, you don't get that what they are doing right in this moment is fighting to be able to give your kids a better experience in the classroom so that they don't become fuck-ups.
Yeah.
But how does like them going on strike and canceling school for 2 weeks help little Timmy?
Well, because it's not about helping their kid. They're mad that they don't have babysitters.
They don't have
exactly.
free daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, the way that our teacher union always frames it is that when we go on strike, our working conditions are their learning conditions.
Mm.
And for a lot of semi-intelligent people,
That makes sense.
that makes sense. When they hear that, they go, oh, that's right. Because, when you're advocating for smaller class sizes, that means my kid gets more time with the teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're advocating for air conditioning in the school, that means my kid can focus in August and in June. On the lesson that's in front of them rather than just sweating and dying. And so when you convey to people that our working conditions are your child's learning conditions, the average person is smart enough to realize that hey, that makes some amount of sense. The issue comes into play where why does it always have to be? And I know anybody listening might start to get a little uncomfortable with this question, but why does it always have to directly benefit the student? Like any other person, I am a worker, okay? Like if I'm not being paid enough, sure, little Timmy is not going to directly benefit from me getting like a pay raise, right? But what will happen is potentially many more teachers leaving the profession because they can't afford their cost of living.
Yeah.
And that will hurt little Timmy and all of his little friends.
Because all of a sudden the class sizes and the proportions will be completely fucked.
But people will be like, well, but it's a raise you're asking for, and so it doesn't directly benefit the kids. Well, okay, I still have bills to pay.
Right.
Yeah, and just like, if we're just being completely honest, right? A higher paycheck is just going to motivate people to be better. Like they're just going to be more focused. They're going to be more motivated to do their job at a higher level.
It's well documented that many very intelligent people very early on in college who have an interest in teaching choose not to teach because they're actively seeking higher economic gains. And it's such a shame because, I have this experience in talking to people. 20, 30 minutes into talking to somebody, people go, it's really a shame. And I go, what? And they're like, you're a really bright guy. And I go, okay, that's great. Is that a shame? They're like, no. It's crazy that all you do is teach. All I do is teach. Now, if I sat for 12...
Easiest profession.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
If
you only take it because you get summers off.
You're right, yeah.
Everyone does.
You're right.
No one teaches summer school.
I should just, sit behind a computer screen in my room, my dark room all day and code for Google to make some kind of AI that will prevent a kid from ever writing an essay ever again anyway. You're right. I should. That's way more valuable to society than me actually trying to teach kids.
Or alternatively, you can sit in a boardroom meeting, not do anything, and just leech off of the labor of
people below you,
1,000 employees below you. It'll be that's the American dream. That's what we're all here for. God, I fucking hate this country. Jesus Christ.
No, you love Ron DeSantis.
Yeah. Okay. So
he didn't want that to be revisited.
I didn't. I didn't
he said
want
that was he said that was pre-podcast content.
Well,
folks, he doesn't actually love Ron DeSantis.
I guess we can get into the Ron DeSantis thing because at this point I feel as though politicians have gotten it into their heads that they know better than most educators, and you can kind of see this starting to happen in much more red states than the blue states. But
it's because once you get the private interests that are all more red leaning in their politics, once you tell them
let's clear the air on this part really quick. Regardless of if you're blue or red, you're getting money from the same donors. Okay, let's put that out there right now. But specifically in the red states that are like completely schizophrenic 24 hours a day, everybody is constantly worried about like the indoctrination of their children inside of the classroom. And recently, Ron DeSantis and his party released this, or they passed this new bill where teachers are required to teach both sides of slavery. With this being, you have to teach about the positives that the slaves took away from being enslaved. And I really do have to really, drive that point home. Slaves, literal fucking human property, and how they benefited from all of the work that they did for free.
It's because that mirrors modern day fucking society, where it's like, hey, listen, these people did all of this work and killed themselves doing this work so that the people above them could really expand their profit margins. It helped that family out so much that they got running water for their neighbors and didn't give it to the workers.
Yeah.
It's definitely to some extent that it absolutely doesn't hurt modern day capitalist narratives. But what I think people need to recognize is that this is something that already existed in many curriculums in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and was done away with in the early aughts, the early 2000s. This issue of teaching both sides of something as if there are always two sides is kind of like how I see debates, right?
Yeah.
A debate puts two people on the same stage together, even if their ideas are not equal.
Yeah.
And so what the average person does is they perceive both people's arguments to be
Fair.
at least of equal merit
Yes.
to listen to, right? And look at this continues on like giant media corporation, especially like, you know, daily, nightly news type things like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News.
Gotta love that
There's
24-hour
always this
news
idea
cycle.
that we need to present both sides of something to seem
yeah.
fair and balanced.
Yeah, it's
The issue is what it inherently does, right? What Ron DeSantis, I think, is doing in bringing this back, right? This idea that we need to teach both sides of something, especially the specific topic of slavery, is that he is trying to actively make his voting base feel clean and empowered and safe and all of the things that they have active. Think about it. I mean, we're talking about people who for the last 20, 30 years have been actively told, hey, a lot of society's ills come from your
This
people's
thing.
history.
Yeah.
Like, you do have to own that, like, while you may not have done this personally,
You have benefited
from it. And
Yeah.
it's your grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, great-great-great-great,
Yeah.
like going all the way back. It's your ancestors, right? And so after decades of hearing this and feeling disempowered, weakened politically, what do you do for your base to fire them up and make them feel great?
Yeah.
You turn around and you tell them, hey, remember, we were the ones who taught them how to do these things. And it's so completely, you know, myopic and short-sighted. It's just this idea that the people who were brought here didn't have skills already.
yeah.
Like, they weren't in Africa already
Like
in
doing
self-sustaining
half of the
communities.
shit. Like doing half the shit that they were being forced to do.
Right. But it's not about critical thinking,
Yeah.
right? And that is obviously evident in a lot of these states' education systems. Is we're not here to actually make you a critical thinker. We're here to propagandize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inherently.
You are just there to indoctrinate. That's what they want to do.
No,
but
no,
it's indoctrination in the direction that they want, and not in a way that will cause their kids
And
to be wokies.
No,
That's the
the whole
brilliance.
thing is anti.
Well, anti-propaganda, yeah,
Indoctrination.
and indoctrination. That's what I was going to say is the beautiful part about Republican politics, is they actually play politics.
Yeah.
What they do is they point at something and they say, you're doing this. And while everybody's looking that way, they
They're
actually
doing
go
the
do
same
it.
thing.
Yeah. It's
And it's beautiful. They play. I mean, really, they are phenomenal orchestrators of politics. Whereas Democrats, since really the 1960s, have not been.
think about it this way, right? Like the entire state of West Virginia, it was something crazy. Like 70% of residents inside of the state of West Virginia were Democrat voters until 2000. Until
BRAC Obams.
I think the second term of BRAC. Yeah.
Yeah, BRAC.
Bungler really fucking dropped the ball. And it's this kind of goes into what I wanted to really talk about on this podcast was Bill Gates's $1 billion experiment with the education system. His entire cabinet of the Department of Education during both terms were just filled with Bill Gates's lobbyists.
You just don't understand.
Thumb point. He's doing the thumb point. You guys just don't see it. Yeah. And
If Bill can do Microsoft, he can do education.
and
That's a horrible Obama. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful.
It's fine. We'll clear down we'll clear
People
down
are
a
going to
historic
accuse me of
park.
racial animosity.
We'll clear down a historic park and put up a bust of you there and like build a really gaudy fucking library. It'll be fine.
And then, we'll just put on the plaque. I don't know. I don't know if people will read it as They just might be like but
Yeah.
it's supposed to be
Yeah.
Anyone who lived through the Obama years
Everybody knows.
It's the intelligent pause.
And the
No, I mean he still does podcasts and interviews and stuff. Like I'm sure there's some people now who still
Yeah,
still
he
get it.
recently
I-
went on Pod Save America and was like,
dude,
listen,
okay,
climate.
hold on.
And
We're
he had no
gonna
climate
go
agenda.
ahead and steer right real quick with the Pod Save boys. Fuck them.
They're horrible.
Fuck the Pod Save guys.
They're literally pieces of shit.
And this is constantly my issue when I'm talking to anybody that likes to call themselves, the common sense people, the centrists. You are devoid of ideology. What you are doing actively harms anybody that is working towards making this place better for like future generations.
Sometimes I don't even think it's that they're devoid of ideology in the sense that like they don't have their own viewpoints. It's that their viewpoint is that we must combine all ideologies into something that's incoherent. Because if you think about it, like let's just do one piece of legislation to prove this point. Because I do believe they have some level of ideology. It's just, it's not a coherent one because they want to always play the centrist role. Affordable Care Act. It's a beautiful example. Mm-hmm. They go, okay, left, we need health
care.
Need to insure more people. Mm-hmm. Right? Ooh, we don't want to take power away from big pharma, big insurance.
Your
we
sponsors.
Don't want to, right? Well,
and lobbyists.
Right. And you know what? Us in this center, right? We want to pass something that, or we want to put forth something that can actually pass. In other words, the money needs to keep coming in to grease the wheels. So what are we going to do? Instead of insuring all Americans, we're just going to insure more. There you go, left. Yeah. We did it. And hey,
because the biggest thing, right? The biggest thing is like the key word with that bill specifically was accessibility.
Yes,
and that was the key word of it.
We already had access to healthcare. Yes. Now, whether or not we can actually
if we can
pay
afford
for it,
yeah,
right. So that's the brilliance of the quote unquote centrists is their ideology is claiming that they did everything.
So, two things before we go back on the Bill Gates thing. So, First off, this podcast was brought to you by Joe Manchin. And the second part of this is I think that centrists specifically that are currently working in the U.S. government that claims to be Democratic or a Democrat or whatever, the one thing that they always go back to is means testing. Everything has to fit in like these neat little graphs where with the Affordable Care Act, some of it was basically just like if you made $3 more than the minimum, you wouldn't qualify for like certain benefits.
So again, let's go back to the average age of somebody in Congress, at least on the Democratic side. The Republican side, ironically, is much, much younger now than during the Obama years.
Dude, I've been trying to like hit up Lauren Boebert like every single day. Yeah. I've been in her DMs.
I'm sure she's on a dating app somewhere.
Yeah, I'm trying to get on Raya.
She's got
we
like
need to blow
American
up this podcast so that I can get with Lauren Boebert. I love women of divorce.
So what I was going to say about this idea of means testing things is it's because it's inherently unsuccessful. And what I mean by that is when you create something that's means tested, it's not going to test time. It's not going to run the test of time. It's not going to be successful for generations. It's not going to be like Social Security, for example. Even Jeff Bezos gets a Social Security check when he retires.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is certainly not going to turn down whatever measly $3,000 Social Security check he's getting. And so it's going to make it much less likely for somebody like a Jeff Bezos to successfully lobby the United States government to dismantle Social Security. That's why even up to this point, when they've made their best effort to do so, Social Security still remains one of the most popular programs, and they can't dismantle it.
It's the same thing that the healthcare system in the UK is constantly trying to do.
Yep.
Like, the fucking Tories have been trying to dismantle NHS for decades. And when you give someone something like that, the moment that you go, hey, maybe we should try to take this away, people are going to flip cars. Yep. People are definitely going to flip cars.
Yep.
But going back to the means testing thing, that's kind of what Bill Gates's education experiment turned education into, where the effectiveness and the efficiency of a teacher is nothing more than the standardized test scores of their students. And at the same time, he was able to make like a multi-billion-dollar contract with Pearson Publishing with Microsoft in order to literally create these programs that were just data mining students without the explicit consent of their parents. And a lot of educators ended up losing their job within the past 15 years because of the stupid fucking ideas that were being pumped into politics by the Bill and Miranda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, it's so this data obsession has seeped into every aspect of our culture. Mm-hmm. It's not. Obviously, Bill Gates was the biggest influencer in the field of education, but I think we need to reconcile, like we need to understand that we are a data obsessed people.
Yeah.
And what's so incredible is we're data obsessed, but we have such low proficiency in math.
Yeah.
And we're so heavily influenced by things that were inherently designed to uphold like systems of racism. Like the field of statistics was literally created to support eugenics. It was literally created to measure IQ and deem certain people less intelligent than others. Hitler was a huge fan of statistics. To use it as a cudgel against the Jewish people.
The nose to head size ratio and everything like that.
All of that stuff. Yeah, and like if we can have somebody take a test and we can measure their intelligence, we can go see it's not that we're inherently wrong for seeing them as a lesser people. We measured it.
The math is there.
We measured it.
The math is there to show you that our hypothesis is correct.
That's the issue with something like statistics is you can make any statistical model say anything, and then when you go to more basic forms of data, just like collecting data and getting a mean, an average from the data, what does that really tell me about my capabilities as a teacher? If I have, on average, my students grow 4% this year in reading.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that actually mean?
What does that literally mean?
Because the biggest issue with the program that was being pushed through Common Core and all of this was that you were trying to neatly place students into boxes. That is what you wanted to do, because you needed to be able to categorize students of like, are they low learning? Are they high learning? Are they just like average students? And that is not, you're not teaching kids how to learn. You're teaching them that they have to memorize this set amount of information to be able to do well on this test, to be able to pass this class. And at the end of the day, you are just going to create more adults that aren't capable of critical thinking.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that also contributes to like just like almost like the short attention span, where like the knowledge that you're supposedly gaining through the entire process of schooling is like inherently short term. Like it or not, kids are not like, that's why we had programs like TV shows like Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Because everyone who's gone through education and learned all these things way back when didn't learn it and hold on to it, and there was no sentiment behind it that was like encouraged you to like remember this long term.
So it's really interesting that you brought up that show, because it would have never been in the forefront of my brain, but I think it's a beautiful illustration of what our education system should be doing. And that is creating people who are critical enough thinkers that, sure, you don't need to know everything at the front of your brain right now about the war of whatever.
Right.
Or like how to find the angle of this triangle.
Right. What you need to be able to do is approach a situation logically, make proper inferences, use context clues, analyze it, put your head together with somebody else, and come up with an appropriate answer. And the people who played that show the best were people who could look at a set of answers, look at the question, and just like taking an SAT,
deductive reasoning,
which is what you should have that capacity upon graduation. We're trying to create critical thinkers. We're not trying to create people who knew, who was the 18th president now, like,
right.
No. And I mean, that is honestly what our when we are seeking data on like student outcomes as a means to qualify whether or not that student learned what they're supposed to have learned, it's so meaningless in the grand scheme of things, because let me put it this way: we never look at a Harvard professor's research and go, I wonder if he was on grade level in 11th grade in reading. We're like, you know what?
You might not, but I do.
we look at that person and we go, you know what? They're clearly capable of thinking in this field, on the vanguard of this field. They're coming up with new ideas. They're incorporating past ideas that have been means tested, and they're producing new knowledge for society. How incredible, how great that is. We don't look at that person and go, their 11th grade teacher, man, they improved their reading score 4%. It's just like it's like it doesn't make
It's not
any
productive.
sense.
It is completely unproductive
And
to.
it was literally designed to fire teachers.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that Bill Gates has openly said multiple times throughout the entire span of that experiment, where he's just like, teachers are overpaid. Teachers are always overpaid.
Not only, well, and let's be very clear here, because these people will never come out and say this overtly. At least a Bill Gates won't. A Betsy DeVos might, but Bill Gates won't. Bill Gates does not like public education.
Yeah,
Bill Gates has no issue. Like, sure, teachers are overpaid. Public education teachers are overpaid.
yeah. $26,000
never
for Mrs. Johnson in Alabama.
In
is
Alabama,
that's
yeah,
too
in
much.
Mobile,
Yeah.
the number of people, if you go onto our teachers subreddit for teachers on Reddit, and you read the number of teachers who say that they have to buy trailer homes in their states because they literally cannot. And I'm not knocking anybody who lives in a trailer home. I'm just saying, you'd like to have a foundation on your house if you're an educated, degreed person. Like you kind of think
You have to
that
get a
when
master's to get the job.
Right.
Then you should probably have a foundation underneath where
under
you
your
live.
home,
Or
so that, like,
be
if a-
able to fucking afford rent.
or even just afford rent at a place that, yes, has a foundation, is an actual building that can't be swept away in a major storm. And so, yeah, Bill Gates is never going to come out and say that, but he didn't want to means test private school teachers.
Yeah, ever.
No. And it's the same.
And the thing is, like, the
outcome as
private
Betsy
school,
DeVos.
the private school directors or the boards would never allow it.
No.
But I mean, his actions show it. So whenever he was passing this Common Core bullshit, his kids never had to go to a public school that had to deal with Common Core. Oh, Bungler's kids didn't have to deal with it. Like, come on.
And it seemed like it was one of those things where when it was first put into place, they tried saying, oh, we're going to follow the progress of the students, and then that didn't work out. So they're like, actually what this is going to be used for now is to like track teacher effectiveness. Like
Right.
that's what this
the other
statistic is
phenomenal
now
point.
going to be.
That's what the other phenomenal point is they have no interest in being like from 3rd grade to 12th grade, this individual student saw growth from here to here on the chart, and that tells us these things. It was, how did so-and-so not teach them right? Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because the biggest issue that this oh god, I completely lost my point. Go ahead, keep going. It'll come back.
Something along the lines of like how it didn't take into effect the individual's like learning situation or whatever at home, maybe.
Yeah,
I know that was something that you talked about
So
before.
the thing is, educators, people that are doing research in education for 50 fucking years have said that the best way to improve educational outcome is through funding of the public school, the environment at home, and just overall learning environment. This has been proven time and time again in every single major city as well as every European country. Okay? I don't understand. Well, I do. I do understand that this was just a vanity project for Bill Gates to be like, oh no, I didn't hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. But, but like at the end of the day, these are people that are experts in the field. They have done the groundwork. They have laid the groundwork for all of this research. They've gone through all of the numbers to see all of the outcomes, and at the end of the day, nobody fucking listened to them.
Well, here's the thing, Harry.
It literally cost taxpayers almost $2 trillion of this because of this failed experiment for them to finally come out and say, we did an oopsie.
But here's the thing, like, why would they listen to like just another Joe Blow who's been doing something for like
50 years.
Well,
like,
and
they're
that's-
just a person.
that's
They
the
didn't
thing.
get all the money.
That's
So
the
like, if
thing.
they didn't make money, then why do they know what they're talking about?
That's the thing is I don't look at any of these projects that these billionaires do as a vanity project. It's often described as that in mainstream media, and I think in just general popular discourse. Like, for example, Jeff Bezos shooting himself into space. I do not see that as a vanity project. What I do see it as is a convenient way to spend money that isn't taxed. So really, at the end of the day, what happened was Bill Gates was so incredibly, and still is, so incredibly wealthy. And instead of being like the billionaires of the generation before him, and building like public libraries, public schools, public parks, infrastructure for people to live like civil life,
with dignity,
and expand as people. Their capabilities, their minds, things like that. What this generation of billionaires is doing is anything but the public good. So anywhere you can actually invest your money that cannot be taxed is a positive thing, so long as it doesn't strengthen government. Because the more you strengthen government and prove that government can be effective for the people, the more you do that, the easier you make it to tax them, right? Because people start to have high approval rating for their government. They see its effectiveness. They see that it actually can do things. And so they'll demand more from their government, and their government will act. So the flip side of that is, hey, I don't want to be taxed, and I want to weaken our government. What ways can I do that? I mean, Jeff Bezos' project is essentially going to give a whole bunch of people an argument that, NASA shouldn't exist, which has already been an argument for quite some time.
Yeah.
I mean, literally since JFK, we've been attempting to defund NASA. Well, you got a guy now who has self-landing rockets. After shooting it into space, it can land itself. Why are we paying for NASA when Jeff Bezos can do that, right?
Because we're all praying for another Apollo situation with Jeff Bezos.
And Jeff Bezos won't be taxed on any of that.
Yeah.
I thought that was Elon.
No,
Well,
Elon has
Elon is-
SpaceX.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I thought that's what that was.
but like
Bezos
him
made
and
the-
Bezos and Elon are just having a dick measuring contest.
Yeah, they both have a rocket company, each of them,
yeah.
under different names and different. But Elon's whole thing is he wants to build rockets to go to Mars. Jeff Bezos wants to build rockets for like space tourism.
Right. Create
So-
the industry that cannot be taxed. Make the new crypto. Create an industry that won't be able to be taxed, so you can do anything and make as much money as you want until the government that you're trying to make even slower can catch up to that thing you made, and you can just ride that
Bill
ride
Gates. What Bill Gates effectively did was create a system that, for all intents and purposes, demonstrated that, at least in the data that was collected, that public education is not good, which fueled the argument that we need to defund public education,
Yeah.
which gave rise to Betsy DeVos and that ilk of people who continue to say charter schools and school voucher systems are necessary. And in doing that, he allowed himself to avoid taxation and appeal like the guy who just wants to make public education more effective, great again. And so it's a whitewashing project.
Yeah.
While what nobody's talking about, while Jeff Bezos is working on, public education for the good of the people, right, is that the man owns most of the farmland in America. Did anyone know that here?
No.
He literally owns most. And I'm talking like it's a scary, dangerous amount. Like, we're not talking about, I'm not using the word most like he owns 51%.
60, yeah.
I'm talking like it's in the upper like 80, 90s.
Oh yeah, and all of it is subsidized. All of it is 100% subsidized.
Honestly, I don't even care. The fact that one man, however he got to own it, the fact that one man in a world where we are heading into climate catastrophe, and whoever controls food and water, no one's talking about that.
Yeah.
But hey, because he's over here doing great work in public ed, and that's not he's only recently, since he got divorced, come out and said, hey, we really messed up with public education.
That's that epi, baby.
Yeah, oopsies.
Yeah. That's that epi relationship,
But he's gonna find another. This is why every billionaire creates a foundation. It's their modern day. Instead of, like I said, Carnegie built libraries, Rockefeller parks, right? Today it's foundations that they get to launder their image through and make themselves appear amazing for society and for humanity, while on the back end they're fucking everybody over. I mean, that's truly what's happening here.
That's like why Elon wanted to make himself the face of PayPal and everything to begin with. He wanted it to like be his image, so that like whenever he did something, the project he was associated with like totally popped off because like he was involved, which we saw with crypto, we saw
It's
with
success
SpaceX,
by association,
yeah. And that's like what they invest in.
When Elon Musk creates electric cars, he's trying to save the planet, right? But don't look where he got his actual wealth, which was in apartheid South Africa, in emerald mines.
Right.
Just look at his actions. Like, Zeets aside, you just look at all of the actions that he's that he's like pretty proud of publicly. And you can see it. You see that he has never had to do anything. Like, he's so detached from what humanity is.
But I think that's precisely the issue with our society and viewing educators, is that we are real people with real educations who work. Like let me put it, after teaching for 10 or 15 years, I have seen literally every type of human being that could exist.
Yeah.
They've come through my classroom at one time or another. I see patterns. I see that kid is like the kid 3 years ago. Those people exist.
Right.
You know, they're out in the world. We are real people actually doing real work for society, actually on the ground, like dealing with, we see society's problems before you guys see it on the news.
Yeah.
And the issue is, most average people outside of a classroom, they think they know how to teach because they've been a student before.
Yeah.
And what ends up, you pair those two things together where when we grow up, we begin to listen to and idolize people who have made lots of money because we live in a capitalist world, excuse me. And so we start to look at people who make a lot of money as inherently smarter, more valuable. They must
that's
know
why
what they're
when
doing.
Bill Gates has the idea for public schools, you
Right.
listen to Bill Gates.
Right, he's Bill Gates. So and nobody questions, hey, isn't that guy only really just a software developer? Like, how does he know about
You're
education?
being really like generous with the software developer side, but keep going.
But so you know, I think that's we start to look at that, and then at the same time, like these people, and we start to believe in them because if they're successful in one thing, they must be able to be successful in a million things.
Yeah.
And we also actively devalue people who are doing real work because, you know, they're just complaining over there. You know, the problems that they're saying exist, it's just because, you know, their life is, you know, on this level.
Right.
You know, maybe if they had done something with their lives, that's what people start to, and it's incredible because who actually provides more value for society?
Right.
I mean, in a real sense. I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn because but I do teach, and so I see the conversations I have with kids. I see how a kid can come into my classroom at the beginning of the year, and after having me as their teacher, how they've changed for the better. It's an incredibly amazing feeling to have that level of impact in the world.
I literally, like, I do maintenance in a school and audio in a church. That's all. It's a private parish and everything. And I was working the other day with a kid who's like first, second year in college or whatever. And we were like putting the furniture back into the kindergarten. He's like, I could do this. We could do this. Like, it's just like a bunch of kids running around. Like, dude, the teachers doing this shit are like dealing with kids who don't know hands to yourself. And like some don't know how to fucking piss in a urinal yet.
I mean, like the biggest thing is what is a school, right? You are literally giving your child when they are at their most vulnerable stages of development to these individuals, and they are expected, like the individuals that are in charge of their day-to-day life, they're expected to mold them into upstanding citizens, right? And at every step of the way, you are taking more and more power away from the people that are inside of the classrooms, and you are making it harder for them to do the things necessary to make your child not be like Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and to your point of like taking power away from us, I think it comes from this idea of you know, just because I'm the parent, and this is my child, this is my biological, or maybe not your biological, but your biological child. Let's say you were the one who went to the hospital that day.
Yeah.
This is your kid. Okay. You're like, I should have a say over their education. But education is a societal investment.
Yes.
Right.
It's not just for you. It's literally for all of us to move forward as a society. And to your friend who said, you know, we could do this. What I usually say to people who work in literally anything else, but this is usually extremely helpful for people who work in like the corporate world. I go, how many meetings a week are you in? They go, I'm in about three meetings a week. Okay. What do you do in that meeting? Well, typically you have to present like sales data or marketing data, whatever the case may be, but I have to present something. Oh, okay. How many hours do you spend, you know, preparing those presentations? And they go, oh, a lot. I mean, have to make them good. My boss is sitting across the boardroom from me. Like me getting paid year after year depends on this. Okay. Well, I do that 5 times a day, 5 different presentations to 30 different people who I have to keep the interest of. Maintain
30 different people at a time.
30 different people at a time who have incredibly different tastes and interests and attention spans and medical diagnoses that I'm dealing with. And I have to deal with their traumas as well.
Right.
On top of that, like their personal life traumas that they bring into the room. And then I have to turn around and do that the next day again with a different presentation for each of the 5 classes. That usually shuts them up really quick.
Yeah, because the other thing is people don't really ever take into account the time that a teacher has to spend making the curriculum at home. You have to sit there. And then the grading.
Oh my God.
All of that too.
The grading. When am I doing the grading?
Yeah.
On top of creating the presentations 5 times a day. Like,
so,
when am I doing?
I have a lot of friends that are educators, so like I have sat there with them as they are going through this existential crisis of like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this sucks, but I'm doing it because I love it. Like, I'm doing it because I genuinely love
I love
teaching.
I truly love my job.
Yeah.
Like I really do.
That's kind of been what everybody has told me. It's like, I don't do this because it's going to enhance my quality of life. Most of the time it is going to make it fucking worse. I can go and work in some office doing a bullshit make work job and make like $120,000 a year. But I'm doing this because I genuinely love being in front of these kids, changing their lives on a very personal level. And that is something that no one ever appreciates.
Yeah, I would say I come from a fairly difficult childhood, and I would say that in a lot of ways, and I know this isn't true for everybody, but in a lot of ways, if I was doing literally any other line of work, I would absolutely need more therapy. Like I would be in a therapist's office 4 times a month, just to enjoy the smaller things in life, whereas the job that I do gives me all of those smaller things. Like, I love my job for so many reasons. I really truly do. But so much of why I love my job, and this is going to sound crazy to people, is because of my union. Like, I'm every day I would probably not work in education if I did not work in Chicago Public Schools and I wasn't a Chicago Teacher Union member.
Right.
Yeah.
My Spanish teacher from high school retired, making $75,000 a year, and she was the highest paid teacher in the district. I am making this upcoming year $70,000, and I'm in my 4th year.
Yeah. That's nuts.
I'm not
insane.
starving, and that's
Right.
great. But why? Because I have a union.
Yeah.
It would have literally been idiotic for me to study education in literally any other municipality. Like if I was literally an hour and a half south of the city, which is where I grew up, it would suddenly not make sense for me to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And so you really do have to love the job. But so much of why I love the job here where I do live is because I've inherited the work that people have done within a union.
Yeah. So Jesse and I both grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and so our education experience was very, very different because funding was never really an issue. You know,
there's good tax base.
Anything that we ever wanted, in terms of just like the infrastructure of the school itself, we got.
Yeah.
You know, state of the art computer lab with the highest tech things at the time. Our books were pretty up to date. You know, like they
Just
were
like 3 years off. Nothing from the 90s.
nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And like seeing all of the teachers and all of their salaries are just public information. You can go up and look at it. The one teacher that I know for sure made an impact on the both of us was our band director. He was getting paid by the end of that, by the end of his career, something close to like $200,000 a year, something like that. And so when I started talking to other teachers and other people that work in the field of education, and they're working in CPS, they're working in like schools in McHenry County or something like that.
It's a very different environment.
It's completely different. And that was a culture shock because you don't ever think about that because of the environment that you grew up in. Yep. You're like, yeah, I mean, we got everything. We got like a new fucking gym.
I can give you an example. So, you come out of college. You're 22 years old, right? If you started at 18 with your bachelor's degree. So I was hired to educate 18-year-olds
When you were 22.
when I was 22.
That's so crazy.
It's a wild experience to become an educator. It really is. It really opens your eyes about so many aspects of society. And just like living and being alive and living, breathing human being. And that's part of why I do love the job. But so 22 years old, I have anyone who's between the ages of 14 and 18 in front of me now. One of the first things I noticed in my school was that 2/3 of the population had some relationship with another language. Remember, I'm a world language teacher. So the first thing I'm identifying is, okay, I've a 2/3 bilingual population, more or less. 66% of the kids are out here speaking to some degree of proficiency a second language. Some are near native level or native level in Spanish. Some, they're conversationalists with their parents, but that's about as far as it goes. But there's still some relationship with bilingualism in this school. What do I see in my department when I get hired? We only have Spanish 1 and 2. So we're teaching Spanish as a foreign language. And the state of Illinois requires that you take 2 years of a foreign language to graduate, right?
Yeah.
So every single student in this building I'm going to see at some point or another in their 4 years. And I'm going to have to, as a white dude, I speak Spanish beautifully, but they don't know that when they first walk into my room. And then on top of that, I'm teaching it to them as a foreign language because that's the only 2 classes we have. It's a joke. Now, what can I do about it my first year? I couldn't. There's not much I could do.
Yeah.
I could maybe try to enrich some of the experiences that they had. Here's a story closer to your level to read while we're doing this. But realistically, not much I could do.
Yeah.
I had 30 kids in front of me. So what do I do the following year? I push really hard my second year to become the department chair. It ends up happening. My second year, I take over to the department. Yep. And I immediately, as soon as I become world language department chair, I start hounding my principal for heritage Spanish classes, which is like Spanish language arts. It's like how we took English.
Yeah.
I get told no.
We don't have the funding.
Well, it's not funding. It's we have a small population of students, which makes it complicated to program everybody according to state mandates on, you need 4 years of English. So a kid has to have English programmed first. You need 3 years of math. So then math is the second class that's programmed. You need 2 years of social studies. So if they don't have their second year and they're a junior, you best be programming that third class. So now their program is half full. And if we don't have a period of the day where you are teaching Spanish, you're specifically available to teach them heritage Spanish, we can't put the kid in that class. So you know what? Because we have a small population, it's just not doable. When of course it was. This was their excuse. Right. I called BS on it over and over and over again, kept fighting. I eventually got the classes. This last year was the first year I got to teach them. Finally, I got to look my kids in the face and be like, look, you're in a class that is for you. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
This year, I worked extraordinarily hard in the fourth quarter to get $2,000 worth of reading materials, books, from the novice level, so beginner, all the way up to advanced. We're talking books where if you've never studied Spanish before, you can come in and read that book and understand about 80% of it. All the way up to you're a Spanish speaker, go read Harry Potter. And I was going to do Leemos Lunes, we read Monday. So kids were going to come in, including me. You go pick a book. I don't care what book it is. You don't have to write book reports. You don't have to do reading logs. We're going to read for 20 minutes for fun. If you don't like the book, you can go back. You can pick up another one. If you don't want to read a book, I had the other opportunity for them was, so they had choice, was to read a current news article at their level. So they'd come in, same Monday. You either go back and get the book in the library at the back of the wall, or you grab an article at the reading level that you're at. We read for 20 minutes. We talk about what we read. Who here today read a book that they really enjoyed? Why should your other classmates go check out that book? Who read about the news article today and not the books? Oh, you read the news? Okay. What was the news article about? Tell your friends who read the books. What's happening in the world? What do you understand? Doing all this in Spanish. This was for foreign language classes and heritage language classes. This was going to go for everybody. And that's the type of work we have to do.
Yeah.
And then be told by people who have never... I mean, where are you going to get $2,000 in, what, a quarter of a school year is 8 weeks-ish?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Just about.
Because a school year is about 40
16
weeks.
per semester, so 8 is a quarter.
So, okay, you have 8 weeks to get together $2,000 worth of funding. Convince people, by the way, that this is
worth
meaningful.
Right.
This is actually going to help kids learn, and they're going to enjoy. They're actually going to do it. They're going to come in and pick up the book.
Right.
Now, hand me that $2,000 so I can turn around and buy these books, because I can't. And I made it happen. You know, this is what a good educator does. And so you're right. Like in Chicago public schools, there's many schools that just simply don't have resources without the teachers in the building.
Yep.
And you want to know what's so incredible? Those same schools where teachers like me have to do all that work, a lot of them have leadership, principals, who simply don't care whether or not the teacher stays.
A lot of the CPS schools, especially in high need areas, it's a revolving door of teachers.
Yep.
Because, you know, why would you
I'm not supported.
Why would you stick around there when you can go somewhere else and make like 3 times your salary or whatever it is?
Well, it's really difficult. So the suburbs, it's actually tricky. There's some suburbs where you can make more over the course of your career, but it's really difficult to beat CPS's
Yes.
pay. Like there are pockets of the suburbs where you can have a teacher who's making $150K a year when they retire. New Trier, type districts.
New Trier, Maine South. We went to one of those schools,
Yep.
Niles
Yeah.
West.
So, there are those schools that exist, but they're very...
Very competitive. It is very hard to get into those schools.
And very far and few in between.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Most suburbs actually make less than CPS teachers because, again, we have a union that has, since the 1960s, been negotiating these demands with the district. And we also have, we get to claim that our cost of living is higher, right? So we get to be like, you need to give us more money for us to stay here. Like literally, it's more expensive to live in the city. Even if realistically, at this point, the suburbs cost just as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still get to claim that, right? Like, hey, when I go to the store to buy a gallon of milk, it's $5. Like you need, like if you pay, when you pay me that $50 an hour, $5 of that is going to my milk buddy. Like,
Right.
We need the
like,
calcium.
automatically.
Calcium for strong bones.
Yeah. So, we really do, like I said, I'm only in my 4th year and I'm already making good money. But I think by the time I'm in my 14th year, I'll make 6 figures.
Yeah.
And
Surely.
that means I have half my career still left to grow in terms of salary. So, but this is again the benefit of a union. Like, and it's just, it's really disheartening that we're at a point where, like people right now and I know you said we didn't really need to talk too much about it, but with the Writers Guild and, SAGAFTRA, like all this stuff that's going on, there's a lot of people who are like, why do actors and writers even need a union?
Yeah. That was pretty much like the first thing that we talked about
Like,
when we started doing this.
Look at
content.
everything that Ryan Gosling is making off of this Barbie movie right now.
It's like okay, Ryan Gosling got to where he got to because he relied on the union in the early years, and it's just like that is true of every field. If we had a union for every field, because I mentioned to you, Jesse, that the principals in Chicago public schools are unionizing.
I was about to ask.
Oh wait, hold on. No, let them cook, bro. The admins need a union too. They need more pay.
Look at how that works with the producers.
This is the one thing, right? This is the one thing that drove me up a fucking wall when I heard about that. It's the people that are in the administrative positions that don't have to interact with the students every single day, or even the
Most
teachers.
of them weren't good teachers, so they left the classroom and went to the office.
So then, so for our school district, our superintendent at the high school that we went to for the entire district laundered something crazy like embezzled like $16 million of money.
We have a couple of those in CPS. One currently is under investigation.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, cool. Why the fuck? Those guys are already making $400,000 or $500,000 a year because they're literally just
my
corporate.
former principal was making $150,000. This past school year, my salary plus benefits topped out at I think 66. So he's making 3 times what I make almost. And like you said, sits in his office all day, air conditioned, away from the kids.
Does not have to do literally anything.
Yeah,
because
checks
that
a bunch of
is,
things
that
in
is
emails,
just what
looks at
admins
paperwork.
are. Like anybody that works, anybody that is a part of the PMC, you don't do anything. You literally don't work. You have a job that makes work so that you can show that you're being productive.
Have you ever seen or read the book? It's by Graeber is his last name. It's called Bullshit Jobs.
No,
No, but that sounds incredible.
It is an incredible book. It is fascinating. It is eye-opening about American capitalism, and there's a beautiful comparison between Soviet communism and American capitalism today. One of the arguments against Soviet communism in America during the Red Scare years before the fall of the Soviet Union in 91 was that, under the Soviet system, they're so pro-worker. They give jobs to everybody that when I go in and get my coffee, there's 25 baristas. And only one of them really has to do any work because they really only need one barista, but they're employing 25 because they put everyone on salary. So that, yay, pro-worker, right? And everywhere I go, there's just a bunch of people standing around. But they're on the job. They're working, right? So that was the criticism. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Graeber's book makes a phenomenal argument that in Soviet, and I mean, he's got all kinds of actual data, not Bill Gates data.
1/10, whatever.
Right. Yeah. He's got like real data from people who actually do these jobs. It's qualitative and quantitative data that he puts together. It's a really interesting book. But he brings up how in American capitalism, it's not the workers on the ground level that are inflated in terms of position.
Management.
It's middle and upper management.
Yeah.
So our pyramid is inverted. The Soviet pyramid was the bottom
Was
was
saturated,
excess.
And then
Tons of
once you
excess.
got closer to the top, that makes sense. It fucking makes sense because you only need one person to divvy out the fucking responsibilities.
Right. But here's the thing. Because we transitioned to a service economy, we
Shout out
need
to
more
Bill Clinton.
managers. We need more, and I'm putting air quotes for people who can't see me. We need more, managers because we have now more teams of people that interact with our customers through service means.
Yeah.
So, we have our customer relations division, we have our blah, blah, blah division, we have our blah, and we need teams of managers to manage the giant teams of people down here. So really what it's shown is that he classifies a bunch of different types of bullshit jobs. He's got like the check mark, he calls it something like a box ticker class. He classifies
Yeah.
And so like the box ticker class is literally just like a group of people who they work 8 hours a day, but they all report that they really only have about 2 hours worth of work to do. So for the other 6 hours, they have to look busy for their boss. Mm-hmm. And 99% of their job revolves around checking boxes.
Checking boxes, copy pasting emails.
Yeah.
BCCing the department head because
I was
you're
going
being
to say
passive aggressive.
you can't forget the CCs and BCCs.
So
And don't forget, folks, always hit reply all. We really love that. I love seeing an exchange that has nothing to do with me.
all right.
Like,
So
hey,
before
he said happy
before
birthday.
we end this podcast, there are two things that I have to bring up. The first thing being that I think that America's relationship with education as a whole can kind of be summed up, or like the view of it at least, can be summed up by like the famous saying of those that can't do teach.
Yep.
And that is how I feel our society views teachers. It's like these are all the fail sons that could not amount to anything in the actual field, and then they went into this.
Which is so incredible because the actual fail son was Bill Gates.
Yeah, the fail sons end up being CEOs making
Elon Musk
billions of
is,
dollars.
yeah.
But the last thing is, so recently another thing that was passed in the great state of Florida was they are now like able to use PragerU Kids videos for education purposes.
God.
You gotta
So,
love it.
If we're really talking about
PragerU, baby.
indoctrination, right? If we're really like, dude, PragerU is made like PragerU or
I love the videos where he's sitting by a fire, like his fireside chats. Like he wants to be Roosevelt, but like he wants to be FDR so bad, but like the conservative one.
Yeah, he's like he's one of two Jews that like really just want to be Catholic. like so bad.
Well, it's him and Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, as soon as they heard the term Judeo-Christian, they were like, yeah, I'm a
That's
Christian.
it. No, that's straight
Yeah.
up just like my thing now.
Yeah.
That is my personality
Yeah.
type. But yeah,
If I'm a Jew for Jesus, I can reach all the evangelicals and get them to donate their money to me.
I love Ben Shapiro. Used to be like one of those people I'd get upset at when I listened to him because
I
like
still get upset.
no, but I mean in the sense that I'd get upset because I was like, wow, this line of argument is really going to appeal to some people, and this pisses me off that it would. Like he's weaving together things that seem logical. Now, like. He's been standing up for all these abortion laws that are being passed across the country, and like literally Judaism is not anti-abortion. Like
Yeah.
his own, he's not even playing for his own team. It's like
Yeah.
it's just so incredibly, it's mind-boggling to me.
It's very transparent. It is very transparent what they are doing.
It's totally like I said, it's literally like he heard the term Judeo-Christian and was like, yeah, I am Christian. You're right. Like it's the same, right?
Yeah.
But he's not on the Judeo side. He just like eliminated the word Judeo and became
Yeah.
the Christian part. I'm
He
sorry.
keeps
so
it around so we can play that
like
specific
PragerU.
victim card.
But yeah, it's just the PragerU for Kids thing being able to be used as like actual educational material when like
It's okay. You know,
It's-
since I'm in Chicago, I'm just going to show Hassan Piker videos to kids and call it education.
like honestly though, it's probably better off to be able to show them a content creator that can teach them about like dialectical materialism as opposed to constantly indoctrinating them into being like, Christopher Columbus, not that bad of a dude. He was
Yeah,
just
no, I'm not- I don't
he
want to
hit
make
you with
any
the eye
listener.
caramba.
I don't want to make any listener think that I'm equating. Just to be clear, Hassan Piker and Dennis Prager, but
No. They are literally the same thing. No, they're Hank
I
Pecker
love-
is Prager.
I love how Hassan is like always shitting on his uncle and the young Turks. He's like, I'm not them. I don't understand what they're doing. Don't ask me about it. It's not my thing. I wish so bad that his actual uncle was Dennis Prager. Like that would be hilarious.
That would be the
That would be
greatest.
so funny.
Like just
They're, like,
think about the
instead
collabs.
of subtweeting at each other, they create content that like essentially
It's so
subtweets.
good. It's so good. Oh my god, that's so.
Like
I'm
we
writing
get a
a fanfic
fireside
when I get
chat
home.
about how communism's bad, and then we get like Hassan in his bedroom who's like, my fucking uncle.
Yeah, just like petting the dog while he's just going ape shit on the microphone. Oh yeah, no, I'm writing a fan fiction about this when I get home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we head out, is there anything that you want to plug? Any information for the unions? That anything that you have, we can put the links in the description.
I mean, I don't really have anything to plug. I teach for a living. I'm not a content creator. As I told you guys, I do occasionally do podcasts, but I just want people to know that you absolutely have the ability to organize in your workspace, even if it doesn't end up being a complete and total union. This is something that takes an incredible amount of time and effort to actually unionize, but that doesn't mean you should not be discussing things openly in the workplace.
All right. So shout outs to Dove Cameron and just get me the fuck out.